This is Cutting Down the Nets. It's here. It is the deep dive into all first round games. Thursday and Friday, we'll go game by game through everything. And I have two pieces of data that I'll be sharing. One is just the median projection. And the median projection versus the point spread, finding value, looking at the matchup, things that you're used to if you've been following this program. The other is simulations. Simulations is important to me because I'm not going to be getting action down until Wednesday night, into Thursday, into Friday, depending on which games I'm playing. So lines can move a lot between now and then. There was the Sunday lines. I didn't even pay attention to them. I knew what they were. I tried to block it out because I knew that I was not going to get down what I wanted to at that time. And I knew that I would be making almost all my bets in person. So the last few days, there's not much movement, but here comes the wave, and things can fluctuate depending on what people bet. In general, you want to bet your favorites early and your dogs late, but every circumstance is different. You need a feel for what teams are popular and what teams are less popular, and you try to time those bets perfectly. But this time of year, lines move a lot, especially Wednesday night into Thursday, and do the best you can. However, come Saturday, those lines will be posted typically Thursday afternoon, right as those games are finishing, and I like to grab those as quickly as possible. So, without further ado, let's go game by game. Let me pull up my spreadsheet. For the year, we're at 55.4%. It's a good year. I always want to do better, but it is what it is. If you're wondering how I do things and what my process is, I recommend reading the description of this video, watching the pinned video on this channel, and then all the information I share is available for free for you in the description of this video in a Google Doc. So I am sorted by tip time here, and we'll kind of go through each of the matchups. First one is Michigan, Colorado State. Paddy is recent efficiencies, adjusted offensive and defensive efficiencies. Paddy outliers removed is, there's two ways you can look at this, and I do both ways. Which way is correct? I don't know. I mean, I kind of read the data. It's a context thing for me. But by removing outliers, I'm trying to reduce the variance. But I leave Paddy with outliers, and it just increases their standard deviation, if that makes sense too. And some teams, some matchups don't have any outliers. So for each of the games we cover, what is Paddy? What is Paddy with all outliers removed? What is shot quality? My attempt at coming up with the shot quality score based on shot quality's efficiencies listed on their standings page. Bart Torvik, KenPom, and then the actual line. I'll have news and notes as well. Something that I've learned as a bettor, you'll see some totals here. I don't trust my totals at all. One thing that I think I struggled with early on with totals is I focused solely on pace. Fast-paced games I was betting over, slow-paced games I was betting under. And you really need to factor in the offensive and defensive performances even more than pace on some of these games. Okay, Michigan and Colorado State. Paddy has Michigan by 1.4, and the line is Michigan by 2.5. So that is suggesting, I better bring my value in here so you can see it. It zoomed out a little too far. So I'm only 1.1 points of value. I prefer that to be at least a possession, but come March Madness, I bet pretty much every game. So if I feel there's an edge, albeit small, I will still make a play. This game, pace should be below average, but some of that can be conference driven. Colorado State did play quite a few games in the low 70s for possessions in the non-con. Michigan's shooting 35% of their shots from the mid-range. If the game is called tight, Michigan is 324th in bench minutes, and Juwan is an auto bench, two-foul kind of guy. Does not let his players play with two fouls. Colorado State, 19th in effective field goal, but very weak on the offensive boards. So they will be limited to one shot often, but Michigan has been exposed against good shooting teams. So I'm not saying that Colorado State will struggle. I'm just saying if they don't make their shots, they likely will be limited to one shot. Ultimately, this game will come down to whether or not Colorado State can either stop or slow Diabate and Dickinson. So how I'm approaching this game personally, again, I'm trying to think 24 to 48 hours in the future. I think we can get a better number. I think we can get a little steam on Michigan. So while I am on the Colorado State side, albeit not confidently, I'm hoping for a 3.5 closer to tip. A 3 is okay, and 2.5 is absolutely my floor, meaning if I show up in Las Vegas and the only thing available is 2 all the way till tip, I don't bet that game. Now, how do I come up with that decision? Let me bring you to another tool I have. First, I should just show you this. So here's Yale and Purdue, and I know you can't see this very well, so I'll just kind of zoom in a little bit. Okay. So I'm putting in tempo, adjusted offense, adjusted defense with some standard deviations. Higher the standard deviation, the higher the variance of the team. And then I choose to run it 10,000 times. I'm basically asking questions of my computer program. If two teams with these efficiencies and these standard deviations played 10,000 times, what percent of the time would Team B win by at least 16 points? And in this case, by the way, it should be Yale, not SPC. It's just a naming thing. 26% of the time versus 74% of the time. So you're going to see that in spreadsheet form. It's a lot easier to read than my Python script in Spider. So here's what the distribution looks like. This is at a pick'em, and I give Colorado State a 46.82% chance of winning the game outright, and Michigan wins 53.18% of the time. The thing about simulations is it's not set in stone. I hit that play button again, and the next time it might say 52.79 and 47 something. So this red line, the first one will always be just to win. Where is the distribution? To the left is the home team. To the right is the away team. And I know they're neutral matchups, but better seed, worse seed, so to speak. And if you move that line to the right, because we're giving a 1.5 in this case for Michigan, that brings in a few more Colorado State outcomes. So why did I say I wouldn't bet it at 2 or less? This program tells me expected probabilities depending on how many points you are getting or laying. And you can see a clear threshold. It's not always like that. And I really need people to understand what 54%, what 52%, what 55% means. Like 55% is you bet this game 20 times. You're losing at 9. And that's good. And that's really hard for people to comprehend. And if you bet all these games and win 55%, for every 20 you play, you're losing 9 and you're excelling. And it's hard to wrap your mind around that. So if we can get into that 3.5, that's where I really like this bet and feel more confident about it. But hey, this is all about the same. And we're just trying to grind small edges. So I won't spend as much time on those as the actual matchups, but that's something to note when you look in the spreadsheet of this pinned video. Moving on to South Dakota State Providence. So Paddy has this close to a pick'em. Shot quality has it very close to the line. Like everything is in line that they set a good line here. I don't know where this line will go. I don't know if it's going to get worse. I don't know if it's going to get better. I just don't see it dropping below 2. And 2 is my floor if I'm betting South Dakota State. So let's just talk this game real quick. Pace, South Dakota State's above average. Providence well below average. There are bull and bear cases for both sides of this game. So the theory out there is that South Dakota State gets in transition. And Providence does not have a very good transition defense. They have a very good half-court defense, not a good transition defense. But here's kind of the tit for tat there. On a miss, South Dakota State will get in transition. On a make, South Dakota State will not get in transition. So if Providence is making it, one, that's a problem for South Dakota State because you just gave up points. Two, it's taken away a transition opportunity and forcing South Dakota State in the half court. So this is really a game that I think has a pretty broad range of outcomes, just depending on the flow of the game itself. Look, a lot of talk about the South Dakota State offense, but Providence is in a good spot here. Also, a lot of talk about Providence being a lucky team. They are. They probably had quite a few more wins than they should have. But this team beat Wisconsin. This team beat Texas Tech. This team beat Vermont in the non-con. It's a good team. South Dakota State is good as well, and they're an elite shooting team. So, look, I'm interested in it, but it's pretty tight across the board right now. Looking at that from a cover and win percentage, you can kind of see that for me there's a drop off below 2, which is why and how I'm making that decision as to when I want to make a play or not, and when it's certainly good. And I don't think we're going to get a 3.5 by any means, but we could get a little better number than what we saw there. Okay, Memphis and Boise State. Paddy has Memphis by 5. If we remove outliers, it goes up to 7.5. Shot quality by 3, and the line is 2.5. Memphis prefers to run. A lot easier to run after defensive rebound. And Boise is a pretty strong offensive rebounding team, but not great shooters. Boise does have a solid transition defense here, but this is a far different style that you're going to get facing Memphis than what Mountain West teams typically do. Memphis is maddening with ball security. I mean, it's super frustrating. Like, these aren't steals. These are throw the ball in the stands. And, it's frustrating. Mountain West teams are content slowing the game down, getting back on defense. So I'm curious to see how Boise will handle the ball pressure from Memphis. Teams just don't play that way in their conference. So it's an interesting nugget. Looking at percentages here, right now we're at Memphis at 2.5. I'd like to, so I arrive in Las Vegas. Game doesn't tip till Thursday. This is a bet I'd be making sooner than later. And when I do, I'd log that in BetStamp. Going back to Thursday, Norfolk State and Baylor. Neutral pace game. Norfolk, decent for a 16 seed. What's concerning me here is that shot quality has this game closer to 30 points. And we saw that there was one high major opponent, Xavier, this year, and Norfolk really struggled to score. And if you're struggling to score against Xavier, and Xavier's defense was pretty locked in at that point in the season, far different than where they finished, but that's kind of scary. Also, against this Norfolk zone, Baylor will get plenty of three-point looks. They allow a 45% three-point rate, so that's makes you a little uncomfortable as well. And just betting against elite teams is just never comfortable. So the case for it is recent efficiency, has it more like 16. KenPom says 18. Torvik says 17.8. So a lot of data points are saying there's value in the dog. It's just scary. And you watch these games and you'll see why it's scary, because it's just like, and it's 14-3 Baylor at the first time out. And you're like, okay, there goes half my buffer. But I'm interested in that game for sure. Looking at that cover and win percentage, again, this is based on data. This isn't me saying, yeah, I give this a 63% chance. Based on the efficiencies of these two teams, regardless of what their names are, this is what it looks like. So everything to the left is Baylor winning this game, and then everything to the left is Baylor covering that big 21.5 number. That's that red line coming down. Next game, Richmond and Iowa. No surprise to see Iowa here if you've been following me lately. Iowa turned into a different team in early February, and we're seeing the impact of that. So Paddy has Iowa by about 15, line's 10.5. KenPom says 9, Torvik says 11.1, but again, those sites are more full year sites. They do shade towards recent play, and early games start to fall off, but I'm just far more aggressive with that. Iowa's 49th in pace. Richmond's below average pace. Richmond's one of the oldest teams in the field, unable to exploit Iowa's defensive rebound issues. They have a poor transition defense. So if they miss, they're likely held to one shot. And if they miss, you're likely leading to Iowa transition. Iowa is one of the hottest teams. That's data-based, not narrative-based. And I don't know if that number gets any better than 10.5. Certainly getting some popularity with the Hawkeyes. Looking at that game from a perspective, did I skip Tennessee and Longwood? I'll come back to that. So I'm having Iowa cover pretty much any number, but if you get north of that 10.5, it starts to go downhill pretty quick. Let's hop back to that Tennessee Longwood. I did not mean to skip that over. So shot quality and Paddy are both around 18 to 18.5, and the line is 16.5. Longwood's actually a pretty strong rebounding team, but they have a leaky 2-point defense, and they allow 63.4% of their field goal defense at the rim. In the non-con, Longwood lost to Iowa by 33 and Georgetown by 8. So Tennessee has elite defense, matches up well here. Longwood also gives up a lot of catch-and-shoot threes, which is what Tennessee thrives on. So I prefer to lay as few points as possible, obviously, and I really, really, really struggle backing Rick Barnes. Our first model 20 years ago, not 20, it was probably 2008, was like, whatever we're doing, just bet against Rick Barnes. So yeah, that is a concern, but this is a far different Tennessee team. So hopping back into that game, I do like the Tennessee side, but there's a point of diminishing returns there as well. Again, I need you to remember how close this is to each other. Don't live and die by this. More of a guide, if that helps. Okay, so we did Richmond, Iowa. Let's get to Georgia State and Gonzaga. Committee was just sleeping here. Georgia State should be at worst a 15, but they got a 16, which is frustrating because Gonzaga is really good. So Georgia State didn't get any favors here. Georgia State does grade out well in transition defense, and they're 18th in turnovers forced. Teams don't press Gonzaga. They're a fast-paced team, fourth fastest team, and you certainly don't want to encourage Gonzaga to be in transition. But we saw in the West Coast Conference tournament many examples of Gonzaga just being sloppy with the ball. I think it's different when you're preparing for it versus a late game situation, but still we have issues there. Gonzaga is likely the best team in the field, not many flaws. It's a great defensive rebounding team. They can neutralize a Georgia State strength there. I just fear the kill shots here. Like, I like getting 23.5 points, but in a 3-minute span, Gonzaga can eat half of that, and that is super scary. But based on the data, certainly shows up as a probability play based on the numbers. And try to ignore the fact that Sunday night there was some 26s and 26.5s out there, which is, again, there's just nothing I can do about it, and it's frustrating. Okay, Marquette, North Carolina. So let me explain how my model works. I look at basically 10 different data points. I'm looking at the last 6 games, last 7, last 8, last 9, last 10, all the way to basically like 15. And I would rather see small edges that show up in all the data points than half the data points showing big edges and then half the data points going to the other team. And that's kind of what we have here. So half my data points, super recent data, has North Carolina by like 8 to 10. And then older data, that 12 to 15 game range, has Marquette as slight favorites or UNC by 1, 1.5, 2 points. So overall, that median ends up around 5, but how we got there is not consistent. So something to note there. So this game is orange just because of that. What makes it bettable to me is the fact that this is a fantastic matchup for North Carolina. Marquette is woeful on the glass, not ideal against North Carolina. Marquette also has lockdown defenders. So if you have that like one player, a go-to guy like a Johnny Davis or something like that, you can just throw Daryl on him and kind of lock him up. But that's not the style of ball that North Carolina has either. Marquette can force some turnovers and get people out of character. That's not really something you want to do against North Carolina as well. So there's just a lot of matchup concerns here if you were on the Marquette side. And I think the bull case for Marquette is Justin Lewis. Now, North Carolina is a good defender as well. They'll probably put, sounds like Leaky Black will be on him. But, I mean, he can take over a game. It is possible. So I think I've said enough about that. But it's a higher variance game, and that's why you'll see some of this stuff in such a huge drop-off. Okay, moving on to New Mexico State. UConn. Paddy has this as 4. KenPom 6. Torvik 5.5. But shot quality 17. So that has me a little worried. UConn is number 1 in offensive rebound rate. Plenty of three-point looks for UConn. New Mexico State is a big team. They're excellent on the boards. A little shaky with ball security. This will be a slower pace game. But New Mexico State is extremely efficient with effective field goal, which is basically shot making. Offense and defense. Matchup notes. Jordan Majeski in his blog wrote about drop coverage for UConn and how that's a major issue and that New Mexico State can exploit that. He felt strongly enough about that schematic edge to be playing on the New Mexico State side. So if you use your resources, you have a data guy saying, yeah, New Mexico State is a fair play, albeit right around possession. And then you have a schematic guy that knows this ball saying that UConn struggles against that type of set. Okay. Glance over here. It's currently at 7. Anything better than that, I feel pretty good about. It gets a little tighter when it goes the other way, as you'd expect. Okay, St. Peter's, Kentucky. I have to explain this one. This is tricky. So, do I think Kentucky will only win this game by 6? First of all, gosh, I hope so, because it would give me a lot of credibility, because it's really hard to say, yeah, probably about a 6-point game, because you just don't feel it. And here's why. St. Peter's, I'm using like an elite adjusted defensive number, and they're 33rd in adjusted defense. You just don't see that with quote-unquote bad teams. So no matter how good the team is or isn't on offense, when you have a defense that strong, it's just hard to come up with a gaudy number to cover that. Now, in the flow of the game, could it happen? Absolutely. I mean, that's the concern. I'm just telling you, if you match up data and you have one team that is like a 89 or a 90 adjusted defense, you're just going to get a small line. There's just nothing you can do about it. But that also steers me towards St. Peter's in this matchup. They'll slow the game down. Kentucky's issue has been on the defensive side for the last 8 games. They're fine if their defense looks like January, but it's been shaky. Shot quality's pretty scary, 25 points there. But again, this is just math. There's nothing you can really do about that. So I hesitate to even show you this because you're going to get overconfident. And I play the same amount of units on every game. To me, it's just bet or no bet. I don't really screw around with that stuff. We'll see what happens with Indiana and Wyoming tonight, but you can kind of get a feel for where I have those matchups against St. Mary's. Creighton, San Diego State, there's not much I can do with this game. Paddy's right in that 2 to 2.5. The line's 2.5. I mean, there's just nothing here. Half my data likes Creighton, half my data likes San Diego State, and just not going to force it. I like to gamble. I like to have fun. So will I bet this game? Probably. I'll pick a side, sweat it out, yell at the TV, all that sort of stuff. So I just don't want to recommend that based on the data that I use. Vermont, And Arkansas. Yikes, guys. It's a pick 'em for me. And you'll say to yourself, Team Airplane, Arkansas. You come off the airplane, you're like, woo, look at this team. This is an athletic team. I've done this a long time, and I've galaxy brained myself out of so many games because of how teams look. I remember one was like Florida State and Harvard, where all my data said, like, yeah, Harvard's got this. Like, it's going to be close. And I'm like, but Florida State's so long. They're so athletic. Harvard hasn't seen anything like it all year, blah, blah, blah. I'm just telling you the data is right more often than the height and the muscles, if that helps. Pace discrepancy here. Vermont 300th fastest team and Arkansas 27th fastest. Vermont is third in effective field goal offense, 69th in effective field goal defense. Can they athletically compete? I don't know. They run their offense through Jalen Williams. I mean, they run their offense through Ryan Davis, and he'll have to contend with Jalen Williams on the Arkansas side. He's an elite big man defender. But I'll be on Vermont here, and I'll splash a little sprinkle on the money line as well. So from a money line perspective, I actually give Vermont a 48% chance of winning that game outright, and then obviously feel good about the cover. Interesting game here, San Francisco Murray State. It's not, I wouldn't call it a home game, and it's close proximity for Murray State. They should have a lot of fans there, and I think that's one area of concern. But Paddy's got this 3.5 to 5 points in favor of San Francisco. Shot quality favors San Francisco. Torvik favors San Francisco. KenPom favors San Francisco. And Murray State is favored. The Dons have elite guard play, and I expect their big man to be fully healthy. Murray has elite guard play themselves. They rebound very well. Look, it's close. I'm just on the San Francisco side. To save time, I'll kind of stop showing these because they'll be in the description of the video, and we'll keep rolling along. There's a few I need to finish up tomorrow night as well. Akron, UCLA. Could be a 58 to 60 possession game, but teams also will be able to score here. So don't just think, oh, slow game, under. I think there could be plenty of offense here. Akron plays super slow, shoots a high rate of three-pointers. Both teams shoot a lot of jump shots. Akron's going to have to defend the mid-range where UCLA lives. It's worked for them. It's, I don't know, I guess it's innovative. It's kind of like that meme of like the smooth brain and the genius. And like no one's doing it. So UCLA is making a living out of the mid-range, and it's working for them. UCLA's top 15 adjusted offense. It's just tricky when these games are a grind. You're really shortening the range of outcomes here, or you're increasing the range of outcomes by shortening the possessions. This is very similar to what happened with Virginia and UMBC. If you're not going to increase the possession count, then just a few three-pointers here and there can really make an impact on the game. So that is the Thursday. I'll add in Texas Southern here for Kansas, but in a 1-16 game, usually don't see a whole lot. So that's Thursday. Let's get on to Friday. Friday morning, we start with Loyola Chicago, Ohio State. Paddy has Loyola Chicago by 4. It's currently a pick'em. I assume Loyola Chicago would be trendy, but I think there's an angle here, and that is to monitor Kyle Young's status. He's dealing with concussion symptoms for Ohio State. He needs medical clearance, and they basically said no news till later in the week. If he gets announced in, that line's going to move towards Ohio State, I would think. Again, there's so much public money on this, so much out there that maybe it doesn't move, but you would think Kyle Young makes that move. So if you're interested in Loyola, I mean, Kyle Young's helpful, but I'm not going to overweight Kyle Young's impact on this game. But I'm just saying, if he plays, you may get a better Loyola number than betting it too early. Loyola is 7th in effective field goal offense, lethal from 3-point. It's a great rim and three type of team. OSU, elite offensively. They're just held back by their defense, and they don't turn you over. They don't rebound particularly well. Um, and I think the absence of Young has hurt there. So I like Loyola here. I like it better if no Kyle Young. But if Kyle Young's there, you'll get a better number, if that makes sense. Okay, Jacksonville State and Auburn. Paddy in that 12 to 14 range, and um, the line's currently at 16. Jacksonville State's a slower pace. They have some matchup concerns here. A lot of turnovers. They coughed up 20% rate. Auburn forces at like a 21% rate. But they have 3 perimeter shooters. And at some point, we're going to find out if the SEC just plays elite 3-point defense or if that conference just couldn't shoot this year. Because every good 3-point perimeter defense is from the SEC. But it might just be because those guys can't shoot. Auburn has a size advantage as they do against most opponents. And Jacksonville State will funnel the 3-point. If someone other than Jabari Smith is shooting threes, that's good for Jacksonville State. But if it's Jabari shooting them, kind of tricky. So matchup-wise, it's okay. Purely a data play for me. Texas Tech, Montana State. This is below average pace. Montana State has only played Colorado and South Dakota State as teams in the top 100 of Torvik. So like a really shaky non-con schedule, and just haven't played a team like this yet. You have a post-centric offense trying to get things going against the Texas Tech no middle. That's not good. Texas Tech only allowing 29% of their shots near the rim, can force a lot of turnovers. It likely takes the whole game, but I think eventually Texas Tech gets there. Yale and Purdue. Average pace game, Yale has not seen size like this, and Purdue defense has been kind of had as of late. I mean, that's the story on them. But Yale was held to 0.58 point per possession, 0.82, and 0.86 against Seton Hall, St. Mary's, and Auburn this year, losing those games by 36, 17, and 22. So if there's ever a get-right spot for defense, I think it's facing this Yale offense. Based on how Yale performed in the conference tourney and late in the Ivy League schedule, this is where it ends up. A lot of that is because of Purdue's defense as well. This matchup and Yale's non-con and shot quality all have me saying, like, I don't know. Now, I'm not rushing to bet the other side, but it might keep me away from a Yale bet. Delaware and Villanova. Paddy right around 11 or 12. The line is 15.5. Villanova can score in bunches, but these games go so slow that it gives us some hope. Anytime, Delaware's up, it's like there's only like 12 possessions left in the game. That type of math starts coming to play. Delaware's been led by Jameer Nelson's kid in the backcourt, and their defensive run was a little outlierish during the Colonial Tournament. So I think Villanova will get there, but there's value in a number this big against a quality opponent like that. Villanova will make you sweat, though. I've been tracking who USC was going to play, really hoping to bet against them. I think I have a play, but this matchup is gross. So Miami's been pretty fortunate. I won't say lucky. USC's been lucky, but Miami's been fortunate. I do like their guards, and that's huge in the dance, but SC's big everywhere. They're the number 1 2-point defense in college basketball. Their size will help. They have a rebound advantage. It's just not an ideal matchup, but USC is just meh. Like they I don't know. It's it's a tough one for me because it was just like auto bet and then like Miami, like that's not ideal. But with 6 points of value, I'm gonna go there and fight it out. But KenPom favors Miami. Torvik favors Miami. Shot quality favors Miami. We're all there. Bama will get winner of Notre Dame and Rutgers. Virginia Tech, Texas. If Virginia Tech wins this game, I think they have a better chance of beating Purdue than they do Texas, just based on the matchup itself. They just don't have an ideal matchup on either end. Texas is gross, though. I mean, you watch them. They get there offensively, but it's struggle bus, like, all the time. So in these situations, I do like to bet on the team that I think can score. Now, Texas plays great defense, but Virginia Tech certainly has the shot makers. KenPom and Torvik right in line with the market. Shot quality slightly favors Virginia Tech, and Paddy has it about 3 points. Chattanooga, Illinois, it's pretty rough. Shot quality has Illinois by 20. I'm not showing much value. Chattanooga has high major talent. The issue for me is in all of the research I've done, they give up a lot of open 3-point looks, and that sets up really well for Plummer and those Illini shooters. I was looking to fade Duke. I don't know if Cal State Fullerton is the team to do it, but all data points are in favor of Fullerton, so I'll probably get sucked into that. Paddy has it 16.5-ish. Shot quality 17, Torvik 17, KenPom 14, and the line is 19. But yeah, Duke's got an immense size advantage here. I'm looking to fade Duke, but man, they got a favorable draw. LSU lost their coach. I don't know if the coach itself factors into this, but certainly the distraction could. So LSU without Will Wade, Paddy has by 6.5. The line is 4. Look at Iowa State's profile. If they don't make half their threes, they really struggle to crack 1 point per possession. Now, if it's luck or SEC elite 3-point defense, I like LSU's chances of limiting the Cyclones from deep. These teams are actually like similar from a data set, just force tons of turnovers, but also give up tons of turnovers. I think at the end of the day, I trust the interior game of LSU and LSU's offense more, and we'll be on that side. UAB and Houston, I'm right there with the line, just favoring the Houston side, but that's a classic example of if the line, this isn't like a team for me, it's a number. So at 8, yeah, I favor the Houston side, but there's not much there. At 10, I favor the UAB side. It's just a number, not much there. But yeah, UAB is going to get 3-point looks. UAB can compete on the glass. That's Houston's bread and butter. So I would need something sub 8 to want to like bet Houston. But I certainly see both sides of the coin there. Davidson, Michigan State. Shot quality and Paddy favor Davidson here. It's hard because my eyes watched Davidson in what looked like the softest approach to a championship game I've ever seen in my life when they got bullied by Richmond. But looking at their profile, that was their worst game of the year. I mean, they just didn't hit any shots, and that's not their style. So I favor the Davidson side here. We're getting 1.5 and hopefully get a little Izzo steam before the game tips. Davidson has elite shot creators. They need to keep this a half-court game, though. You don't want to get up and down with Michigan State here. So, yeah, that's what I got there. Colgate and Wisconsin, a pseudo home game for Wisconsin, but I could see paths to Colgate even winning this game. Not going to bet them on the money line, but it's tight. Colgate can score. I mean, it's really a play against Wisconsin at that point. I'll be interested to see how I attack that game, especially since it's like late on Friday night. Rock fight between TCU and Seton Hall, slower pace. Both teams have some offensive issues, and both teams can really D up. So likely an underplay. Not that I'm any good at those, but I'll get sucked into that for sure. TCU's number 2 in offensive rebound rate. Seton Hall's really struggled offensively without Bryce Aiken, their point guard. He will not play. And Kadary Richmond, their other guard, is banged up as well. That offense can just crater a bit, but so can TCU. I'll be interested to see how that one kind of shakes out. So here's what I got for you. I'll paste this spreadsheet into the description of this video. This left column, Memphis through TCU, that's kind of my preferred plays, factoring in shot quality, the value in the Paddy number, the matchup. Um, I'm going to treat them equally as the second column, but if you're trying to shorten a card and not bet every game, I would stay more in this left column. I will be playing all these and playing all these about equally. When I take big stands on games, it typically doesn't work out well for me. I also want to point out, if you don't see a game listed here, I'm not out on the others, but I'm monitoring. So this is where you can apply your own process. You've kind of seen my reasoning behind what I like and what scares me from matchup perspective, recent efficiency, shot quality, and you can add games, you can cross games out. Um, Nothing worse than having conviction in a game, playing the opposite side because you saw someone else on it, and then losing. Don't do that. If you have conviction, go for it. I don't win every time. Other people don't win every time. But every time I follow someone else's advice and go against what I thought was going to happen, it's just really frustrating to lose those situations. So, what's next? This should wet the beak until Friday night, and it's likely Friday morning is when I post a Saturday video, um, kind of highlighting what that looks like. That'll give me Thursday data to pull in. Matchups will be set. Lines will still be somewhat fresh as people are focused on Friday. So I hope you have a fantastic March. I'm looking forward to it, and good luck out there. If you're in Vegas, maybe I'll see you in them streets. This is Cutting Down the Net.